Okay, good morning and welcome to a regular meeting of a panel of utility commissioners and staff of the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority held today, Wednesday, August 31st, 2022 by remote teleconference. My name is Chairman Marissa Gillette and I'm joined virtually today by my colleagues, the Vice Chairman Jack Bukowski and Commissioner Michael Karen. We have a regular calendar and a consent calendar in front of us today. We have 3 items on our regular calendar. We will turn to the first item now, which is docket number 030711, the application of X2 Communications, Inc., doing business as DC Communications for a certificate of public convenience and necessity. We're going to turn to Mr. Rich Karzinski on behalf of authority staff to present the decision for the authority's consideration, please.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairman Gillette, Vice Chairman Bukowski, and Commissioner Karen. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present docket 030711 to the panel this morning. On January 7, 2004, X2 Communications, Inc., or doing business as DC Communications, was granted a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate as a switchless reseller of intrastate long-distance services by the authority. By letter dated June 14, 2022, the company notified the authority that it was it planned to discontinue provisioning long-distance service in Connecticut and requested that it voluntarily relinquish its CPCN effective September 1st, 2022. As an aside, this is an effort beyond Connecticut that they're just getting out of this business nationally. Although X2 does not provide local exchange service in Connecticut, the company stated in its letter that it was voluntarily following the mass migration guidelines established by the authority in its decision in docket number 011210 back in 2003. And the mass migration guidelines set a framework for certified local exchange carriers to exit the Connecticut market. And the essence of it is that it helps ensure that communications customers are notified in advance by their exiting provider so that they can transition their services to a new provider and minimizing service interruption. In this docket, as I said, local exchange service was not an issue, as X2 Communications is an inter-exchange carrier with about 25 Connecticut customers. The company stated that its customer notification efforts began around mid-May, May 15th, with impacted customers being sent direct mail in the May timeframe. In addition, the company stated that it would send a reminder notice on or about August 1st and a final notice on August, around August 15th. The authority finds that X2's customer notification strategy, is consistent with the authority's mass migration guidelines, and as it allowed impacted customers sufficient time to transition to an alternative long-distance service provider. On August 1st, the authority issued a proposed final decision. In accordance with section 16247GG of the General Statutes of Connecticut, the authority is required to provide an opportunity for interested parties to request a hearing by written request. No parties filed a request for a hearing. Therefore, I recommend this to the panel for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skarzinski. Is there a motion?
I move adoption, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. The decision has been regularly moved and seconded. Ask Mr. Bumpin to please take the roll.
Chairman Gillette,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bukowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Karen,
Yes.
Thank you. The decision has been adopted. We will turn next to docket number 171203 RE08, PURA investigation into distribution system planning of the electric distribution companies, the resilience and reliability standards and programs, also known as the 8th track of the authority's Equitable Modern Grid Initiative. We'll turn to Mr. Capozzi for a presentation of the decision for the authority's consideration, please.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman, and good morning, Vice Chairman Bukowski and Commissioner Karen. So the decision I'm presenting for you this morning considers a number of topics related to the reliability, resilience, and emergency planning of the electric distribution companies, United Illuminating Company and Eversource Energy. Those topics are interrelated, though they may have been initially undertaken for different reasons. The different reasons are really a confluence of three obligations of the authority. So first, Section 12 of the Take Back Our Grid Act, Public Act 20-5, which is now codified as Section 1632N, subsections B and C of the General Statutes of Connecticut. That statute required that UI and Eversource submit a cost-benefit analysis on their performance during 5 recent storms that have impacted their service territories. It included analysis on their response to those storms in terms of doing damage prediction, using field resources, communications policies, and other response activities. And subsection C of that statute requires that the authority analyze and review those reports. So that review was conducted in this decision. Second, Connecticut General Statute 1632E requires that the authority conduct a biennial review of the emergency response plans of the EDCs. That review was conducted in this proceeding, and our analysis was provided in this decision. And third, one track of the authority's equitable modern grid framework identified the need to maintain and improve reliability and resilience of the electric distribution companies. The goal of that track was to establish a more robust framework to achieve those reliability and resilience in the most cost-effective manner possible. So you can see how all these issues are interrelated. For example, you can't really separate reliability and resilience planning from emergency preparedness and emergency response, and even from actual storm performance. You can also see how the analysis of past storm performance and the staffing levels used by the EDCs can inform reliability and resilience planning and emergency response planning. So this decision took an approach that sought to understand all these issues and issue sort of a decision that unifies them and contemplates their interdependency, how they relate. And so first, I'll talk a little bit about each, but first in this decision, we conducted our review of Eversource and UI's storm performance report that was required by the Take Back Our Grid Act. So we reviewed their cost-benefit analysis reports on staffing levels, and we used that to inform later parts of the decision. Also, we reviewed their emergency response plans pursuant to our statutory obligations. And really, this review was a continuation of a review that was done in our Tropical Storm Isaias decision. So in that decision from April 2021, in docket number 200803, we directed a number of changes to emergency staffing levels, to communications, policies and procedures, to a whole host of other changes. The review in this proceeding expanded on that and built on that. And here we identified some additional changes and improvements for UI and Eversource to make to their emergency response plans. Those include making more clear definitions of make safe and blocked roads for coordination with municipalities. It also included the expansion of the consideration of critical facilities to not just include those of the municipalities, but to also factor in the critical facilities of other utilities and other critical infrastructure sectors, such as telecommunications, water, and gas. We also directed the inclusion of specific emergency protocols to deal with seasonal reliability issues or energy, either regional or local energy emergencies due to maybe limited fuel supplies or other causes. And we also required the EDCs to begin to develop a cybersecurity specific portion of their ERP to ensure we're dealing with any unique and specific issues related to cybersecurity emergencies. And next, and a rather large component of the decision, is the establishment of reliability and resilience frameworks. A lot can be said about these, but I'll try to be as concise as possible here. But the goal first was to standardize the process for the EDCs to develop and present to the authority robust programs that addressed reliability and resilience needs in the most effective manner possible. These frameworks have the following components. First, they establish objectives and targets by which we identify the reliability and resilience factors that are driving these programs and that we can use to evaluate the plans. They also establish a set of robust metrics for data collection and presentation to the authority and other parties, so we can evaluate these programs for effectiveness and for cost effectiveness. These metrics, some of which are new, some are traditional ones used in new ways, will ensure that these programs follow a data-driven approach, one that can be supported by, quantitatively as much as possible when the authority reviews these plans. These frameworks set up an annual review process, so we can constantly stay on top of our review to make sure these programs are effective and are informed by the data. And that process also allows us to sort of modify the framework as necessary and as it's going through its iterations. So next, we fold in other key components into the reliability and resilience planning, the planning of the utilities, make sure they're considering these factors. One is climate change. Are they considering the impact of climate change on their infrastructure and on their customers? We set a path forward for looking at what insurance options there are available to deal with the increasing intensity and frequency of storms. We also established a process to consider the development of a long-term undergrounding strategy. And another key component of this is the reestablishment of a vegetation management working group. Vegetation management programs are a large part, have been for a number of years, of the utilities reliability and resilience programs, and we felt it necessary, and this was really supported by all participants in the proceeding, the reestablishment of vegetation management working group to work through some of the key issues around the utility vegetation management programs. So I could say a lot more about this decision and this framework, but it's all in the decision, and I now present that decision to the commissioners for their approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Capozzi. Is there a motion?
I move adoption.
I second.
Thank you. The decision has been regularly moved and seconded. So I'll open it up to comments from the bench, if any. I would just like to start and say, Mr. Capozzi, you and Attorney Tisler did a fantastic job with this proceeding and the decision. I'm really pleased that we're advancing another spoke of the wheel of equitable modern grid. I think the reliability and resilience frameworks are going to open up the information and try to chip away at what I perceive to be, a constant disadvantage of the authority and stakeholders for, the information to conduct these proceedings and to fulfill our duties. And I think we've taken great pains in the decision to make sure that the sharing of information in this way does not impede the electric distribution companies from fulfilling their statutory obligation to provide reliable and quality electric service. So I'm looking forward to the implementation of these frameworks, along with the results from the studies that we've directed and everything else that went into the nearly 100-page decision. So I really thank you and applaud you for your work on this. And I'll just see if my colleagues have anything further.
I think you said it all, Madam Chairman. I echo your comments to Mr. Capozzi and this team. Thank you.
Good effort by all, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. So we will take the vote.
Chairman Gillette,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bukowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Karen,
Yes.
Thank you. The decision has been adopted. So we will move to the third item on our regular calendar, which is docket number 220210, the 2022 PURA review of Connecticut Public Service Company emergency response plans. Another decision coming out of Mr. Capozzi's unit. This time we have Mr. Apollonia with us to present the decision for the panel's consideration.
All right. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioner. Docket number 220210 2022 PURA review of Connecticut Public Service Company emergency response plans was opened as an uncontested proceeding on February 14th, 2022. Connecticut General Statute 16-32E requires PURA to review emergency response plans, ERPs, of the public service companies, facilities-based telecommunication companies, voice over internet protocol, VoIP service providers, and municipal utilities furnishing electric, gas, and water service. PURA staff finds that most companies comply by filing ERPs that meet the statutory requirements or by submitting an exemption status form. The authority concluded that all ERPs and exemption status forms filed meet the minimum requirements set forth in the Connecticut General Statute 16-32EB. The final decision for the docket 22-0210 directs non-compliant utilities to file their ERP or an exemption status form with the authority on or before September 15th, 2022. A failure to do so may result in the authority exercising its powers under applicable statutes to assess fines and/or to suspend or revoke licenses or certifications to operate. The authority directed ERPs of natural gas companies, water companies, and telecommunication companies to include a list of critical facilities, backup energy capabilities, and restoration priorities as appendixes to their ERPs to be shared on a confidential basis with the applicable electric distribution company. The authority cited its experience supporting the state's Emergency Operations Center during recent extreme weather events, such as Tropical Storm Isaias, as justification for such provisions. Importantly, existing statutory protections enumerated in Connecticut General Statute 16-32E already provide adequate protection to ensure that all appropriate information remains confidential and exempt from disclosure. PURA staff asked the chairman, vice chairman, and commissioner to adopt the docket number 220210 final decision and make it part of the record.
Thank you, Mr. Apollonia. Is there a motion?
I move adoption, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. The decision's been regularly moved and seconded. If there are no questions or comments, I ask Mr. Bumpin to please take the roll.
Chairman Gillette,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bukowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Karen,
Yes.
Thank you. The decision has been adopted. That concludes our regular calendar, so we'll turn to our consent calendar. So I'll seek a motion with respect to the consent calendar.
Madam Chairman, I
So,
move
Madam
today's
Chairman.
consent calendar. And second.
Second, Madam Chairman.
I will take the motion from Commissioner Karen and the second from the Vice Chairman. The consent calendar has been regularly moved and seconded. Mr. Bumpin, please take the roll.
Chairman Gillette,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bukowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Karen,
Yes.
Thank you. The consent calendar has been adopted. With that, we have reached the end of today's regular meeting agenda. We will adjourn and reconvene next Wednesday, September 7th at 10 a.m. by remote teleconference. Thank you. Have a great day, great rest of the week, and a wonderful Labor Day weekend.